Welcome to Flipped Classroom. Today's lesson will focus on the elements of drama with a specific focus on Antigone. Let's begin by taking a look at the difference between drama and a play. Drama is intended for reading, and that is what we're doing in English 303. A play is intended more for performance. With drama, the audience has its own interpretation of the drama, whereas in a play, it presents the interpretation of the artist. And finally, in drama, there's a direct interaction between the dramatist and the audience. Whereas in a play, there's no direct interaction between the dramatist and the audience. The structure of a play tends to start with an exposition. This is where the characters and the conflict are introduced. In Antigone, it begins with learning about the sisters and what has happened to the brothers, as well as the king's decree. Then complications arise. This is when tensions build. For example, in Antigone, when Antigone tells her sister that she is determined to bury her brother's body, and Creon has declared that anybody to do so is in violation of the law. The climax is the highest point of tension. This is the action determines how the conflict will be resolved. In this play, it is when Creon is stubborn, does not listen to his son, and sends Antigone to basically her death sentence in the tomb. Following the climax, we'll see Haman's reaction, the queen's reaction, and at the end we have a resolution. When that is when the conflict is resolved and the play ends. And in this case, the resolution ends in tragedy with the various suicides and Creon left alone. Antigone fits the definition of a Greek tragedy because most classic Greek tragedies deal with serious yet universal themes such as right and wrong, justice, injustice, life and death. And these tragedies pit human limitations against larger forces of destiny. For example, it's prophesied that Oedipus and his family members will all suffer greatly, and that prediction is made as if it is fate. It will happen. But humans make choices. Creon makes choices. He does not have to imprison Antigone, which leads to the deaths of his family members. So this play, once again, looks at humans and their choices versus fate, what is predestined, what is going to happen no matter human action. The protagonist of most classic tragedies is called a tragic hero. And this hero is usually someone who is noble and admirable in many ways. In this case, Creon, he is very good ruler, but he has a tragic flaw, a personal failing that will lead to his tragic end. And in this case, it's his pride and also his stubbornness. Antigone is equally stubborn and very rebellious. And these personal failings that they experience lead to the tragic outcomes. The opposite of Antigone would be a comedy, and that's a Greek play that ends very happily. The plots usually center around a romantic conflict. Main characters in a comedy could be anyone. They could be royalty or common folks. They could be rich or poor. And the complications usually occur before the conflict is resolved. Traditionally, a comedy will end in a wedding, and in modern comedies, they usually focus on ordinary people and their personal issues. Typical 2017 plot would be boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy wins girl. Everybody ends happily and gets married. So that would be a very typical contrast to the type of wedding we see in the Greek tragedy Antigone. When reading Antigone and other plays, pay close attention to the types of speeches that the characters can give. They may just be in conversation with other characters on stage, which is called dialogue. They could be giving a long speech, one character to other characters, and this is a monologue. A soliloquy is a speech by a character alone on a stage to him or herself, speaking to the audience. You'll also find some asides, and these are remarks made to the audience or to one character, but the other characters on stage do not hear this. We don't really have many asides in Antigone. Here are some key terms that will appear in a play. Foil is a character whose qualities or actions usually serve to emphasize the actions or qualities of the main character, the protagonist, by providing a strong contrast. On occasion, the foil is even used as a contrast to a character other than the main character. In Antigone, the foil would be her sister, because her sister is less willing to break the law and be rebellious. And they share many similar qualities, but they take a different approach. So to understand Antigone, we are presented with her opposite. Foreshadowing is another element, and that's the use of hints or clues in a story to suggest what action is to come. And foreshadowing is usually used to create interest and build suspense. For once the gods have rocked a house to its foundation, the runes will never cease, cresting on and on from one generation on throughout the race like a great mounting tide. This speech foreshadows that Antigone's father, Oedipus, who was the foundation of the house, and when he ruined the house, when he ruined the family, it creates this cycle that goes through generations of tragedy. It's almost a proclamation to support fate, that once Oedipus made his move, it was inevitable that Antigone and her brothers and sisters and someone she would marry, generation to generation, would suffer the same fate. Another key term is personification, and that's a figure of speech in which an object, abstract idea, or animal is given human characteristics. When Haman confronts his father, he says to him, "How about you in a public brawl with justice?" In this case, justice, an abstract idea, is being personified, because you can't brawl, you can't have a physical fight with an abstract concept. So justice is personified, meaning, Creon, why are you challenging the rules of law? Symbols are also found throughout plays, and you'll see in Antigone, for example, Creon's attack. When he attacks her, she no longer feels pain. And it's physical pain that she no longer feels, but it's symbolic of the pain and suffering that can no longer be inflicted upon her by the state. Because Creon, like other symbols, is an object, person, or place that has a meaning in itself and that also stands for something larger than itself. Usually an idea or concept, something concrete which represents an abstraction. And Creon represents the state. So when he physically attacks her, it is the state, it is the rule of laws, it is the justice system attacking her. Irony, that's a perception of inconsistency, sometimes humorous, in which the significance and understanding of a statement or event is changed by its context. For example, the classic example of irony is the firehouse burning down. It's ironic because you'd expect someone in a firehouse to be able to put out a fire. One type of irony found in Antigone is dramatic irony, and that's where the readers know more about a character's situation than the actual character does, and knows that the character's understanding is incorrect. We see this when Creon makes his proclamation about the burial, saying that anyone who buries one of the brothers will suffer the ultimate punishment. And at this point, the readers already know Antigone has buried her brother. Another instance of dramatic irony is when Creon claims at the end of the play to have suffered the ultimate suffering, but the audience already knows that the queen is dead and he has not suffered the ultimate suffering yet. Verbal irony is another type of irony used in Antigone, and that's a discrepancy between what is said and what is really meant, and that often comes in the form of sarcasm. We'll see Creon says, "The wisest fall with shameful fall, when they clothe shameful thoughts in fair words." And what's happening, he believes he's behaving in a wise manner, but it's truly his lack of wisdom that is going to bring shame, going to bring upon his failure. Theme, which is found in most forms of literature, is a central or dominant idea behind the story. It's usually the most important aspect that emerges from how the text treats its subject. It usually expressed indirectly, as an element that the reader must figure out, so it's not going to be stated explicitly. It is a universal statement about humanity rather than just a simple statement dealing with plot or characters in the story. In other words, it's not a fact. It's going to take critical thinking skills. It's hinted at through different methods, possibly phrases or quotations that are introduced in the text, possibly a reoccurring element, or observations made that are reinforced through plot, dialogue, or characters. When you're trying to identify the theme in Antigone, look for issues that surround the concept of what does it mean to be a man or woman. Look at some of the comments Creon makes about men and women, and look at the stereotypes of how a man and woman are expected to behave by society, whereas they're genuine action. Another route to take when identifying the theme in Antigone is tracing what is more important. Is it fate or free will? Are these characters in the play destined from the beginning to their demise, or did their choices lead to their suffering? So in review, when you go back and look at Antigone, identify literary devices, specifically dramatic devices such as the ones I've gone over in this video. Also, review the Canvas discussions carefully. Those bring out concepts, different ideas to focus on that go beyond fact, that develop your critical thinking skills, and will help you prepare for writing on this play. The midterm is based on this play, so in preparation of the midterm, you want to go back in the play and be familiar with the following concepts and where they're located in the play, as well as how they are presented. Look at concepts such as crime, punishment, justice, the system of laws, public responsibility, for example, the state and government's responsibility versus private responsibility, personal, family responsibility. By identifying these concepts, where they're located in the play, what literary devices develop these concepts, and having your own opinions about them will help prepare you for the midterm. Thank you for joining me today in Flipped Class.